Income inequality is growing in the United States at an alarming rate. The top 1% now own more of this nation's wealth than the bottom 90% combined. Senator Sanders, when you introduced your wealth tax, which would tax the assets of the wealthiest Americans, you said, quoting you, Senator, billionaires should not exist. Is the goal of your plan to tax billionaires out of existence?
When you have 500,000 Americans sleeping out on the street today, when you have 87 million people uninsured or underinsured, when you got hundreds of thousands of kids who cannot afford to go to college and millions struggling with the oppressive burden of student debt, and then you also have 3 people owning more wealth than the bottom half of American society, that is a moral and economic outrage. And the truth is, we cannot afford to continue this level of income and wealth inequality, and we cannot afford a billionaire class whose greed and corruption has been at war with the working families of this country for 45 years. So if you're asking me, do I think we should demand that the wealthy start paying, the wealthiest, top 0.1%, start paying their fair share of taxes so we can create a nation and a government that works for all of us? Yes, that's exactly what I believe.
Thank you, Senator.
One thing I kind of wish he would have dived deeper into, I know it's hard in these debates, especially when there's like a lot of people, a lot of candidates. But talk about how hard corporations work to keep it the way it is. Because this is not natural. Right. I think that's why Bernie takes that position that there shouldn't be billionaires. There shouldn't be billionaires because this situation is not natural without exploitation first. And I think that's the problem.
Lobbying and all that.
We don't talk. I'm telling you, we don't. This is going to probably be a 2.5, 3-hour show about a debate. We watch it, and we don't really talk to one another. That was actually going to be my next point.
Really?
Yeah. Because these companies spend millions of dollars to lobby against workers' rights.
Right.
They do that for a reason, because they don't want a system, that comprises of people having dignity and equity in that system. So there's a lot of legwork that they do to keep it this way. That's not natural. They're doing that for a reason, because of greed. They also hold states hostage in regard to their presence there. It's like, hey, we'll come there and give you jobs, but you got to give us some tax breaks.
Oh yeah, definitely. So like you said, it's a very unnatural thing that we have going on right now. If we did just have the situation where all that lobbying, all that influence was not a reality, and we just had people that were just making money based on their idea, based on their efforts and things like that, then I don't think we'd be in the same situation where so many people are in so poor situations, situations where, again, they can't afford to take care of themselves or their families. We would have a situation where, look, not everybody is going to be able to be an innovator. Not everybody in this system, not everybody is going to be able to be an entrepreneur. It's just not going to work like that, because we do live in a service-based industry. So we're going to have more employees than we do bosses. That's just a given. Yeah. And I'm good with that. I'm actually good with that, provided that the people that are employees can actually take care of the bare necessities, can visit the doctor, can send their kids to school, can put food on the table, can put clothes on their back, can visit a movie from time to time, can go out to eat maybe on occasion, things like that.
But they can't do those things because the CEOs need to have 10 yachts.
Exactly.
They get rid of one of those yachts, they'll be toast.
Helicopter, private plane.
Helicopter,
like
private plane. They gotta have those. Those things are necessities.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I know, Barbara can't afford Pampers for her daughter. You know what I'm saying? But that's the sacrifice Barbara has to take so the CEOs can have that helicopter, that chopper, or that Rolex or whatever.
Exactly.
One thing about that kind of income inequality and how it's like kind of this conversation is shut down, especially with advice given to poor people. What do they say? Maybe you just buy one less Twinkie. And You know what I'm saying? You just cut down on the honey buns. You be, you know what I'm saying? You be able to save one less latte.
You got that expensive phone in your hand.
Yup.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe these CEOs can give up one of their fucking yachts.
Exactly.
Or one of their choppers.
So we do have a billionaire that was on the stage last night, though, and that is Tom Steyer.
Yeah,
So obviously, with Bernie Sanders talking about billionaires and talking about his wealth tax proposal, Tom Steyer was directed this question, and what does he feel about Bernie's answer, and what does he feel about Bernie's wealth tax?
Mr. Steyer, you are the lone billionaire on this stage. What's your plan for closing the income gap?
Well, first of all, let me say this. Senator Sanders is right. There have been 40 years where corporations have bought this government, and those 40 years have meant a 40-year attack on the rights of working people and specifically on organized labor. And the results are as shameful as Senator Sanders says, both in terms of assets and in terms of income. It's absolutely wrong. It's absolutely undemocratic and unfair. I was one of the first people on this stage to propose a wealth tax. I would undo every Republican tax cut for rich people and major corporations. But there's something else going on here that is absolutely shameful, and that's the way the money gets split up in terms of earnings. As a result of taking away the rights of working people in organized labor, people haven't had a raise. 90% of Americans have not had a raise for 40 years. If you took the minimum wage from 1980 and just adjusted it for inflation, you get $11. It's $7.25. If you included the productivity gains of American workers, it'd be over $20. There's something wrong here, and that is that the corporations have bought our government. Our government has failed. That's why I'm running for president, because we're not going to get any of the policies that everybody on this stage wants. Health care, education, Green New Deal, or a living wage, unless we break the power of these corporations.
Thank you, Mr. Steyer.
Knock that shit out the park.
Yeah.
Knock that shit out the park, man. And of course, again, this is coming from a billionaire, Tom Steyer. Now, we have talked about his past before. He was in, he was into some things, investments.
Hedge fund.
He put that behind him. He distanced himself from that past. He said, actually, he was, I don't know if he used specifically the word ashamed, but he said it was the wrong decision. He regrets, I guess, that lifestyle. And ever since then, it's really been a 180. He's been trying to do the right thing. At least it looks like he's been trying to do the right thing. He's been walking the walk for many years now.
But there's still a toss-up whether he walked the walk if he got elected. I do think it's a bit of a contradiction for him, though, to talk about how corporations have bought America when he bought his way on that stage. This is I can agree with the points he made, and he's one of the few people that tends to co-sign Bernie Sanders and what Bernie Sanders says. Probably one of the few people on that stage who consistently does it. So I can't fault him too much, but it's just a bad look to talk about how corporations have bought their way in to our government, but you bought your way.
But see,
the debate.
The difference but the difference is that he's not lobbying the government.
True.
He's lobbying people.
True.
You know what I'm saying? He's trying to get his message out there to people.
And maybe that's what, his purpose is, because, people talk about, and we talk about it too, but I have to put it in perspective. I can say this person has no chance. They're polling at 2%. They're polling at 3%. They're polling at 5%. I understand that people want these debates to be dwindled down, right? Because they can be, you can have a little bit more focus with less candidates. But I do think some of these candidates have a purpose. A lot of them don't.
Right.
A lot of them don't. I do think Steyer has a purpose here, regardless of his electability. I'm not using electability as mainstream media uses it. I'm just saying like his viability. So there are a few candidates that are polling low that need to be there to kind of steer the conversation in a certain direction or provide some assistance for Bernie Sanders. I think he provides that. Now, some of the other candidates, I'm not sure they provide that same kind of value. You know what I'm saying? Like Buttigieg.
Well, look, Tom Steyer, you can argue you can argue about his viability, you can argue about his effect, his value, this and that. I think he's doing a better job being a progressive than Elizabeth Warren is doing. I can say that. He has he has qualified for the 5th debate as well.
Shots fired.
Yeah.
like nonchalant.
Yeah. But yeah, he has qualified for the 5th debate. What I also liked about his commentary right there was he included the truth about the minimum wage. And if you actually adjusted for inflation, you actually adjusted for productivity, the minimum wage would be much, much higher than a $7.25. We're talking about over $20 an hour. We have talked about this at least a handful of times in the past 3 years. So I'm very glad that he actually brought that up, because you don't actually see that, especially on a debate stage, very often.